Hey there. Welcome to the second session of the Great Indian Story, Ramayana. Yesterday, I hope you had fun listening to the different stories of the origin of Sita, Dashrath, Janak, the early education of the Ram and his brothers, and how it leads to a very strong foundation for the rest of the story. Today, we will take ahead and discuss some key incidents and stories along with the wisdom beneath all of these stories and make it a memorable session for you. So, without further ado, let's get straight into it. When we left off yesterday, we mentioned about the attack of Tadaka, Subahu, and Marichi in the Yagna of Vishwamitra in his pursuit to find what makes a perfect king. Ram and Lakshman were the ones guarding the entire compound. The arrows of Ram shredded through the heart of Tadaka and put her down. Subahu also was killed, but Marichi fled away from there. Vishwamitra reminds Ram that let the hostility of the Rakshasas, let their fear not change his humanity. They give them a faithful and a very dignified cremation and move ahead from there. Now, what happens is they say, seeing the kind of skill which you have, I want you to come with me towards the land of Videha in the court of Videha's king Janak. There lies a great bow of Shiva by the name Pinaka. It is said only a man of great will, power, can wield it and can string it. Do you have the strength for it? There's no harm in trying. And the victor, the person who would be able to complete it, would be given in hand the hand of Sita, the daughter of King Janak. Till up this point of time, Ram and Lakshman both have no idea what's in store for them. And as they reach out over there, they notice that many of our people, many kings and princes have arrived over there to see the beautiful bow and the beautiful princess of Chanak, who's also called by the name Janaki. When they reach over there, many people try, but no one is able to complete the task of lifting the bow. Forget even stringing it. Finally, Ram, with the permission of his guru Vishwamitra, steps up. He bows down, folds his hand, respectfully remembers his ancestors and his teachers, and finally gets down to lift the bow by his hand. Almost effortlessly, he is able to lift it, and everyone gasps, thinking, how is he able to do what so many of us were not? But that is not the end of it. He now slowly uses his left hand to pull down the top end of that bow. On the other hand, he has the string in his hand and he tries to take it and wind it around the string. But something very interesting happens. As I mentioned yesterday, there are many variations of the same incidents because of the variation and interpretations of the story. In Valmiki's Ramayana, it is mentioned that for one instance, Ram's gaze falls towards the beauty of Sita. In that moment, he unfortunately pulls the top end of the shaft of the bow a little too hard. And what does that do? It breaks the entire bow into two pieces. There is a huge sound which is emanated from this huge breaking, the string coming off, and everyone gasps. Not only was he going to string it, he even had the power of breaking it. Everyone was confused. Did he complete the task or not? Janak, the king, finally gets up and answers this question and says, from today, Ram will be called as Janaki Vallabh, the beloved of Janaki, the daughter of Janak. He had agreed that Ram had the power to wield the great bow of Shiva. Everyone was happy that such a worthy king they got to see, or a prince they got to see. But there was one person who was unhappy with this. One person who made his way storming into the court of Janak. This man was none other than Parshuram, the feared Rama of the Brigu clan who wielded the axe given by Shiva himself. Why was he there? Because he was extremely angry that who dared to break the bow of his god Shiva. Looking at the audience over there, Ram quietly stands up and says, it is I, Ram, son of Kaushalya, scion of the Raghu clan, prince of Ayodhya, who did it. You may speak to me what you wish to say. Parshuram, out of anger, says, what kind of a king you are when told to bend a bow, could not control your strength and broke it. Such a person shows that you do not have control over your power or your thoughts. This might lead to adharma, which is wrong righteousness in the future, and that might lead to a lot of harm. Such a person deserves to be punished right now itself so that no one ever does what he or she did. Now, that was a long statement and a long accusation from Parshuram. Ram looks at Vishwamitra and says, would I answer this? Vishwamitra allows for it to go on. He says, Ram, go ahead. Ram points out that what control do you speak of Parshuram, who has killed king after king, generation after generation, in the fear, in the context that a punishment will keep kings in line? What is the story behind Parshuram's killing of king after king? What does Ram know that we, you and I don't know? For that, let me tell you the story of Parshuram. Parshuram, in his life, had a father by the name Jamad Agni. Jamad Agni had a Kamadhenu cow, the magic fulfilling, wish fulfilling cow. This cow helped him take care of all of his needs so that he could focus on improving and taking his tapasya to the next level. But there was a king by the name Kartavirya who noticed and he wanted to have the cow for himself. He tried to use force without listening to Jamadagni and stole the cow from Parshuram's father. In anger, Parshuram lifted his axe and cut open all the hands of Kartavirya. In retaliation, Kartavirya's sons came and attacked Parshuram's father and beheaded him. For the third time, again, Parshuram, in anger, went behind all the sons of Kartavirya and killed them. Similarly, whenever, every single time a king did something adharmic, a wrong thing, Parshuram lifted his axe. 17 times he came across and killed and hacked every single wrong king on earth. He filled up 5 great lakes by the blood of these Kshatriya kings. The ones who were saved hid behind women, hid behind homes, and they neither had the strength or the courage to be great kings. Parshuram kept asking the question, if kings who are supposed to take care of the society, if kings who are supposed to be givers an example, if they start breaking rules, who will uphold him? And that's the reason why Parshuram took it in himself to punish those who did wrong. But today's context was different. Ram now had an answer to him. Ram tells him that rules are important, Parshuram, but kings will not become good because of the fear of punishment alone. You have to show them how to be good. Parshuram had never heard such an answer before. He finally asked Ram, then who is a good king? Ram answers and says that a good king is that who uses rules with empathy to understand that they are made to ensure that the weak have a right, the weak are taken care of, and the strong do not become stronger and take decisions on their own basis. A king is that who maintains balance in society for every single person. He upholds righteousness and ensures that evil is kept at bay. But a society which does not allow for forgiveness, a society which does not allow for mistakes to happen, will never be a happy one. Unless and until we show the way of how things are to be done, no one can be able to set a happy society. When Ram says this, it is so many things for all of us to think about. When someone doesn't do something well in our office, when someone doesn't work as per our expectation, do you think punishment and disciplining is the only way? Is it the most effective way? Isn't that a lot of what we do? Someone doesn't do, just fire them. There's a very small story in the modern context which might relate to you this time. There was once a company who hired a CFO to take their business from X to 10X. Unfortunately, after 2 years of hiring him, the business went down by 50%. When asked to the CEO that when are you going to be sacking this person, the CEO said, definitely not now. Why? He's caused so much loss to you. Well, I have already invested such a big amount in him. I am not going to let him go till he returns back and till he makes the 10x return which I want. His faith in him inspired him, gave him the confidence that he still believes in his ability. And so it happened. The next 2 years, he made for more than up than what he had lost. And the company truly did grow by 10x. That's the power of faith. That's the power which all of us need to keep in mind of trusting and saying that we don't make premature judgments on us, on or other people. Parshuram finally, listening to this, keeps his Parshu, keeps his axe down and says, now I do not need to use punishment anymore, for in the world of men there is a king who will show them of how to be a good king. And he renounces violence forever. This is also called as Parshuram and Ram Samvad, which is a very important cornerstone of the Ramayana. And I hope that you've taken this. Probably one simple message all of us could take in our life also is that you cannot force anyone to love you. All you can do is be lovable and trust that the right one will love you back. Let's move ahead to the next part of the story. With the bow being broken and Janak announcing that he would be Janaki Vallabh, it is now time for the marriage. A message is sent to Dashrath, the boy's father, that he has completed this and the wedding will be conducted in Janak's home city. Along with it, a message is also sent that it is not needed that only your eldest son and my eldest daughter be married. I also know that you have three more sons, and I also have in my family three more daughters. Let our houses be united. Let us bring both the families together once and for all eternity. And all of them get married. Ram marries Sita, Lakshman marries Urmila, Bharat marries Mandavi, and Shatrughan marries Shrutakirti. These four young princes and princesses are now in the holy union together. What I'm about to share now is going to probably relate a lot to you. Because even in today's modern context, in the Indian scenario, we have a lot of weddings that we do. But we wonder about why are the rituals the way they are. I will share with you today three to four very common rituals which we follow, which was also followed during the times of Ram and Sita. The first one, Kanyadan. They are said that there are 10 types of donations, and Kanyadan, the giving or the granting of the bride, is also one of them. When Janak gives the hand of Sita to the hand of Ram, he tells him, I give you Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth and prosperity, who will bring happiness to your house. In return, I ask for Saraswati. I ask of you to give me the knowledge of letting go. This is an exchange, and there is no expectation like in Dakshina or in Bhiksha. Very interesting, isn't it? The second thing which they do is the putting of the sindoor. The reason why this practice of putting vermilion on between the forehead lines of the bride is to indicate to Indra, the king of gods, that this woman is not available to anyone else but her husband. It is also a significant way of sharing with the country, with the world, with the society that this person is a committed one. The third one is the throwing of the rice. The throwing of the rice is symbolic of showing that a woman is now repaying the debt which her parents gave. She is now moving independently and freely into the next house which she will live for the rest of her life. These are three small practices, but very beautiful meanings around them. There is one more thing also which I would like to mention. In this entire process, these women, these princesses, when they move from one house to the other, they also take two dolls each, which is given by their mother. We have heard of Janak, we've heard of Sita, we've also heard of Urmila and her sisters. But a lot of us don't know the name of Sita's mother. Sita's mother's name was Sunena or Sunetra, as per different accounts. Sunena gives two dolls each to her daughters and says, take them and put them in the most sacred most place. Along with her, not only do jewels, weapons, fabrics go along, but she also takes along different food items, herbs and spices, tasters, craftsmen. She brings new culture, new food, new taste, new ways of being into the family which she's going into. And this is true in our families also. So think about the next time when you attend a wedding or you are part of one, you would know the beautiful mixture of cultures, the beautiful meanings behind the symbology of a parent and a child, which happens over there. Now, These are very happy times, and as the girls reach their new home in Ayodhya, there's a great celebration to welcome these four princesses, these four future queens inside. Sita notices something very interesting and asks Ram, I noticed that your father, Dashrath, my father in law, has three queens. The first queen, Kaushalya, whom he respects. The second queen, Kaikeyi, whom he loves. And the third queen, Sumitra, who serves him. Which queen will I be? Ram says, my father might have had three queens, but I will only have one wife, whom I will give everything to. Sita smiles and she says, but you have still not answered my question. I asked, which queen will I be, not which wife? Ram smiles and gives probably the most interesting answer. Ram says, my wife sits in my heart as I am the prince of Ayodhya right now. I exist for her satisfaction. But when I do become king in the future, you will not only be my queen, my wife, but you will be the queen who will sit on my throne. And the queen who sits on the throne exists for the kingdom's satisfaction. The wife exists for my satisfaction. When you are the queen, it is a different matter. When you are my wife, it's a different matter. Dear viewers, this is something to think about. All of us live different lives. We are different with our families, we are different with our friends, we are different when we work in a space. So, wouldn't our expectation and behavior also be different? What happens when you work with the same people who are also part of your family, but also are working with you professionally? When we have this kind of a different alternative setting, probably it's important to think about what Ram has said to Sita, that when you're a queen, our expectation, understanding, and behavior must be different, and so that it does not cause any effect on our personal relationships, and vice versa. When you reach home, you are back to a family, you are a husband and wife, and not a colleague anymore. That's the modern perspective I hope you can take away from this story as well. Moving ahead to the next part of it. Now that, as per many accounts, there were almost about 12 years which passed by in marital bliss between all these beautiful children. And one day, there is the story of a boy called Shravan Kumar. Shravan Kumar today is almost a synonym for a person who has immense love and devoted towards taking care of their parents. It was said Shravan Kumar took care of his parents and fulfilled their every single wish. They were both old and blind. So he put them on his shoulder through a suspended bamboo and took them around the four dhams in India, as they say, before the passing away of any soul, one of the best things you could do, one of the things you should do, is to visit the four holy pilgrimages or the four holy sites. These are spread in four different directions: Badrinath, Dwarka, Rameshwaram, and Jagannath or Puri. These are the four places. And he was on this tour. One day, what happens is that he notices that a tiger and a deer were walking in the same direction, thinking that there is a waterbed close by. He puts his father and his mother down and he says, I will come back with a glass of water to you. On the other end of it is Dashrath. Before we move ahead with that part, probably something for all of us to think about is the kind of love which this boy has for his parents. It reminds us of the fact that it is important to keep in mind the love which we have for our parents as well. Remember, we are so busy growing up that we often forget that they are also growing old. Dear viewers, please think about this, that while we live, are we ensuring that we do everything to keep a smile on our parents' faces? And it's not always about we being right or we doing right. Sometimes we have to also accept that we might be right, but it's okay to accept that the opposite person is righter. Sometimes, even though it is you who knows what's the right answer, your parents might have not understood it. Kindness is more important than being right. And that's something to think about from the story of Shravan. The other end of the story is there was a king, Dashrath, who could shoot by listening. One of the terms given to this is Shabda Bhedi. Shabda Bhedi means simply by the sound of a certain word or the sound in the vicinity, you could make out in which direction and what size is the prey in. And Dashrath, when he was on the shooting trip of his, notices that there is some sort of a noise which is coming, and he assumes that to be a deer drinking water, trying to take and test his aim, that do I still have it in me? He takes out his arrow and shoots. Unfortunately, to his horror, he listens to the screaming, wailing voice of a man. This man is Shravan itself. As Shravan lies down over there, he asks him, Dashrath, what have I done to deserve this? Have I done something to you or to your family? Then why did you shoot at me? Dashrath falls down at his feet and asks for forgiveness. He tells, my parents are waiting for water and that they have sought from me. They are old and they are blind. They might be consumed and eaten by an animal in this forest. Please take this water to them and please keep them safe. By the time he could complete that, he had taken his last breath. Shivering and shuddering, he takes that water and moves in the direction that Shravan had pointed. He notices that the parents were sitting over there. When they noticed that it is not his son, they inquire of him, and Dashrath confesses that he had killed them by mistake, without any intention. But a bad action without just good intention or no intention is still something which you have to count for. When they hear the demise of their son, out of anger and pain, the mother keeps crying. The father looks. The way my wife is weeping in pain because of the separation from his son, you too will cry at the separation of your son. The way I promise that in a few minutes we will die because of this pain, because that is much better to die now than to die at the hands of old age. You too will pass away remembering your child the way we are remembering him now. Unable to listen anymore, Dashrath runs away from that moment towards the court and immediately asks, where are my sons? I want to meet them. He is now scared that before anything happens, he wants to bring across and give the kingdom to his sons before anything happens and anything removes his sons away from him. The curse of the parents is that he too will face the separation of him and his son. But which son would it be? When would it happen? No one knows. In our Indian culture, there is a philosophy of karma, and karma says every action has a consequence. Whatever we do, good or bad, reaps fruits of that same level and manner in the future. It could be a few days from now, it could be a few minutes from now, it could be even a few lifetimes from now, but every action has a consequence. How does this affect our king? We will come to know now. As he reaches over there, he asks for all the kings, all the ministers, the royal guard, the Guru Vashishta to assemble at the court. He informs them of his decision of anointing, of making Ram his eldest son the king. He sees him as fit, and everyone else is very, very happy. Vashishta, in specific, has a very perturbed look on his face. He wonders what's the real intention behind this? Why is the king doing this? He notices that probably, king, you have realized that you are following the four stages of life, which is a very good thing. But there is some weird reason behind this, which you aren't telling us. Unfortunately, Bharat and Shatrughan were not there because their grandfather was not feeling well and was on his deathbed. So they went to meet Kaikai's father. Ram and Lakshman inside the court were having lunch at a different place. But before we go to what happens when Ram calls him, is this. The four stages of life which Vashishta was mentioning about is something which a lot of us know about. And it makes a lot of sense when you think about it as well. The four stages of life, as per our culture, says that the first stage is something called brahmacharya, which is student life, where we spend our life acquiring, not connected to any property, not connected to anyone else, just self-dwelling and trying to understand how the world works. The second one is called grihastha, which is an age of marriage, an age of having children and working and building your career, earning money, and all these things, which is the second quarter of our life. The third quarter of our life, between 50 to 75, is called as Vanaprastha. This is the place of retirement, handing over responsibilities, taking care of children and grandchildren, and all of these things. And finally, the fourth stage, which a lot of us don't think about. We think that after grandparenting, it's just waiting for impending death. But the fourth one is called as sannyas. Sannyas is the place where you again, like the first phase, become free of any attachments of property or of people, of no family. You are a wandering sage or a female sage looking for the true meaning and kind of liberation from life. He was moving from the third phase to the fourth phase. He wanted to give up his entire life and make sure that his kingdom was in the right hand of the right king. And who better than Ram? So, what happens when he calls across for this? The story starts getting very interesting from this point onwards. Let's see what happens next. While everyone was celebrating this decision of making Ram the king, there was someone who was very unhappy with it. They started making some connections of why did the king do this? Was it pre-planned? Was it because of some instance? And this person was Manthara. Manthara was the wet nurse who took care of Kaikai from a very young age. She also took care and raised Bharat from a small child. Manthara walks up to Kaikai and informs her the decision of the king to make Ram the king. Kaikai at first is extremely happy and says he is a noble, worthy man who would make a great king in the line of the Raghus. Raghu was the clan name of this entire dynasty which Ram belonged to. But Mantra said, "You are not able to see what I can see." Kaushalya is going to now become the queen mother. And do you remember when Dashrath came to your father, when he came to King Ashwapati of Kekaya, he mentioned and he promised that you, who is going to be the king, who's going to give the birth to an illustrious son who will be the king, you will be queen mother. But if he's going to make Ram as the king, then Kaushalya will be queen mother. You will become a maid. Kaikai now starts thinking for some time. The plan of Manthara starts to work. But Kaikai still is not convinced. She says, maybe it's worth the sacrifice because the kingdom is probably more important than my wish. Manthara has an answer, like a snake whose hood is up with a sting in her mouth. She says, sacrifice is good. The poor always sacrifice for the rich. The weak always sacrifice for the strong. The unlearned and uneducated always sacrifice for the learned and educated. Probably you are also doing the same thing. I am now going to be the maid of another maid. You are going to be the maid to the main king, main queen now. That really struck Kaikai. Kaikai said, no, never. I will never be anyone's servant. I will always be a queen. I will right away go and speak to Dashrath. He always listens to me. I'm his favorite queen. And there was a truth in that. Of all the queens, Dashrath loved Kaikai the most. She was not only the most beautiful, she was also the one who had saved him once during a great battle which he fought against the Asuras on behalf of Indra, the king of all the gods. During that battle, Kaikai had not only motivating him from his words, but also took care of all the horses as the king fought. During one of the moments, the axle of the wheel of the chariot broke down without thinking twice. Kaikai used her own forearm inside the wheel so that the wheel could continue rotating and the king could continue fighting. For this, he promised her two boons at any point of time in her life out of the gratitude and the love which she had for her. This now comes to fore. Manthara says, remember those two boons that he promised you. Ask him. Do not give him an option. Tell him that you want it. Kaikai chuckles and she says, I know what to do now. And finally, when he comes, when Dashrath gets the message that Kaikai is waiting for her, he also gets a surprise that what happened? Where exactly is this coming from? And during those days, during those ancient times, it was said that in the palace, there used to be a place called a Kopa Bhavan or an anger room. Whenever the queen used to be angry, she would stay in this room till the king appeased her and brought her out from there. Disheveled, putting all her jewels on the floor, she starts crying and wobbling over there. What happened? Who has made you unhappy? Tell me the reason of it, said Dashrath to his favorite queen. Kaikai says, I am sorry for you. I am crying for you because you will now spoil the great name of kings that you come from. You will spoil the name of the Raghu clan because you will not be able to be true to the promise that you made. What are you talking about, Kaikai? What promise have I made which I will not be true to? Anything. I will never let the reputation of my family fall down. And Kaikai now turns and looks towards him. Then give me the two boons that you promised me. Give me the two boons. One of them should be that instead of Ram, I want you to make my son Bharat the king. The same thing which you promised to my father. I just ask of that. Dashrath has a big freckle on his face. He's sad. He's confused. What do I do? I promise Ram. Ram is the elder one. It's the eldest one who beats the king first. But maybe because of the boon which I made, it is my mistake. I cannot blame her because she's a mother and she's advocating for a son. But she was not yet done. There was a second boon that she was asking. The second boon is what tears open the heart of the man, this old man who's trying to get rid of his responsibility so that his sons could be kings and he could be happy, so that the curse of that man, of the parents of Shravan, would not come true. She says, my second boon is that I want you to send Ram to the jungle to live like a hermit for 14 years. This makes him immediately fall down on the ground. What has the Ram ever done to you? Even though he is the son of Kaushalya, I have seen him to be more kind to you. Why would you ever wish upon this thing? Why are you bent on destroying our house and our happiness? She says, I am only doing this to protect myself, my son, and my family. You promised me these two boons. Either give it or don't. There's a very famous saying in the family of the Raghu clan, which Dashrath and Ram came from. It said, Raghukul Reet Sada Chali Aayi, Pran Jai Par Vachan Na Jai, which means that it is the tradition of this family that may our life go, but the word that we have given, the promise that we have made, shall never go empty. With great sorrow, he now calls for Ram to the king's court. Mantra says, I will go get him. Ram is having his food at that time. Immediately as he hears that your father is calling you, it's a bit urgent, without even getting up. Sumitra tells he's completing his food, let him complete it. But Ram had awoken and gotten up by that time. And as he goes over there, he sits down and Ram tells him, Dashrath tells him, this is the two boons that I had promised to your mother, Kaikai, and I need to fulfill them now as per a request. Tomorrow, you will have to go to the village, to the forest, and you will have to live for 14 years like a hermit. A hermit is a person who will have to eat food only which is plucked from the tree or taken directly from the ground. You have to wear clothes which are made from bark, from tree, from plants, no jewels, no nothing on you. And for 14 years in a forest. And a forest is defined as a place from where you cannot even see the light of human settlement. Such a difficult life. And it's just a young prince, not even a man who's lived life. Ram, without thinking anything, Father, a word given must be kept. You have taught us that reputation is more important, integrity is more important than anything else, than any comfort. That sentence broke the father even more. He would have felt better if Ram would have said something, if Ram would have revolted, but Ram was not of that character. Ram simply says, I will keep the word of my father. I will go at this moment itself. Kaikai, listening to this entire conversation, smiles and smirks and says, no wonder he's your favorite. He listens to you unquestioningly, undoubtedly. Dashrath looks at Kaikai and says, you are blind, you wicked woman. This is not a son obeying his father. This is the prince of Ayodhya. This is a son of the scion of the Raghu clan who is upholding the reputation of the Raghu family. The curse of Shravan's parent had slowly begun. No matter what he did, he had in fact fastened that entire process. Ram now gets up. But in this entire moment of grief, there is also some amount of sunlight. As he gets up, Lakshman, who hears his entire story, the younger brother, for the first time the story now is introduced, tells that I have always been a shadow to you in the court, in the palace. Wherever you have gone, I have gone along with you. So I will follow you to the forest as well. Ram says nothing. And now it is Sita's turn. Sita speaks, so shall I. Ram, for the first time, shouts, no, you will stay here. Sita, in a very cool and a calm manner, says, I do not seek your permission. I do not need your permission. When we went around the holy fire, you and I are treated as equals, half of the other. We complete each other. We are one in two souls, in two bodies. I will never be of any burden to you. Whatever you shall eat, I shall taste first. Wherever you shall sleep, I shall rest along with you. I will always be beside you or behind you. I will be able to take care of myself. But it is my role as your wife to be with you through thick and through thin, through good and through bad, through happy and through sad. Knowing that he cannot overturn this decision and the firmness of Sita, all three of them agree. And Manthara, chuckling with happiness, arranges for clothes for them in a matter of minutes. They put down all their jewels, their royal footwear, and they start wearing it. Finally, the woman is now about to do the same thing. She's about to change into clothes of Bak herself. Kaushalya, unable to see this mistreatment of Sita, looks at Kaikeyi and says that, does your heart have no mercy? Does even the future queen have to do this? She says that no, you are the honor and reputation of this family. Go looking like a queen. Go looking like a princess who has married into the Ayodhya family. You can keep your clothes. She also tells Ram, carry your weapons and take care of her. Never let Bharat doubt your loyalty because of any act which you do. Ram simply bows down, takes the blessing of all of his mothers, and says, I will follow each and every word to ensure that my father's promise to you is fulfilled. Everyone wonders, where does he get this sense of calm from? Where does he move around with? People are swelling with anger for Kaikai, but Ram has none of that. Ram is nonchalant. Ram is peace and calm through this entire process. And as they start walking out towards the door, get onto a chariot which can take them away from the kingdom, Dashrath from behind follows. And it's not just Dashrath who follows them, it's the entire family, it's the entire population of Ayodhya who had now, just till one night before, prepared for a great celebration with musicians, wrestlers, entertainers. Great food was made for the great coronation of Ram as the king, had now come to know that Ram is going to be going into the forest. They followed him right from behind. They said that, Ram, do not accept this injustice to you. We are with you. We will kill Kaikai. We will kill Bharat also if we have to. But you are our only king. And if you are not going to be here, then we will neither live in Ayodhya ourselves. We will follow you to the forest and come back with you after 14 years to the city. Ram realized that there is something amiss over here. I want to remind you, during this entire episode, neither is Bharat nor Shatrughan, the other two brothers, present. Remember, I mentioned that they had gone to meet King Ashwapati, Kaikai's father, who was unwell. As they step out, Ram now addresses and speaks to the entire audience of Ayodhya who has assembled behind him. Ram mentions that what has happened over here is something which can teach you and us a lot of things. My father gave two boons to my mother out of gratitude, but forgot probably that how it could affect and change things in the future. It can be at best said that it's unfortunate, but I request you to allow you for me to make my choices, to uphold the reputation of my family, of the kings of Ayodhya is my responsibility. And if I do not follow and give this boon to my mother, then I will not be able to do that. You are upset because you had an expectation in your mind that Ram is going to be the king or Dashrath is going to be the king. And when things don't go as per plan, you become upset. It is expectation which is the reason of your sorrow, not what has happened alone. Let go of this. Live and choose love over hate. Live and do your duty over desire. Ayodhya is something which all of us have to take responsibility for. And as they said, for the first time, none of the Ayodhya folks had any answer to this. What Ram said was true. He had the choice to make a decision, and they were responsible, and they had somewhere become too attached to their assumption and to their desire to see only Ram as their king. Sometimes these things happen in our life too, that we are so stuck, we want something to happen this way, and when it doesn't happen that way, we experience immense amount of grief. As they say, attachment is the foundation of fear, and fear is the foundation of desire. Desire is the foundation of problems. Problem is the foundation of pain. It's all connected. To love something does not mean to be attached to it. If you can love without attachment, the way Ram loved his family, he loved his mother, including Kaikai, but was not attached enough to them that he was not able to walk away. He was willing to walk away even without Lakshman and Sita by his side. That is pure love, one which is without attachment. And finally, as they reach at the corner, a message which we can take from this is that you can't stop life from happening to you, but sometimes you can stop from things, you can't stop from things going wrong, but you can choose how you respond to it. And as they reached over there, Lakshman took the responsibility to be the shadow, to take care. And after a few days, they started realizing that neither are the people of Ayodhya leaving, and neither is Lakshman sleeping. For days on end, Lakshman kept guard, ensuring that no harm came in the forest region to Ram or to Sita. Finally, a goddess by the name Nidra Devi came and said that what you're doing, Lakshman, is against nature. You have to sleep as well. He says that I have taken an oath to take care of my brother and my brother's wife. I cannot sleep. Then who will sleep? And Lakshman says, go to Ayodhya, speak to my wife Urmila. She has taken a great amount of pain and sacrifice to let me go. With Ram is Sita and with Sita is Ram. But Lakshman and Urmila are now going to stay away for no fault of theirs, for no reason of theirs. Go to Urmila and ask her to take my share of the sleep. And so it happened. For 14 years, Urmila, the wife of Lakshman, slept for day in and day out. And Lakshman stayed awake for every single day and every single night, keeping ensuring that Ram and Sita are safe. Isn't this one of the most beautiful examples of love, not only between two brothers, but also between a husband and wife for someone else, for their elders? Can we have something of this sort in our life as well? Are we taking small steps towards it? Something to think about. Finally, as Dashrath sees Ram now in the forest, all the curses of the parents of Shravan starts coming through. He only thinks about Ram. He keeps uttering a name every single day and night. He falls sick immensely. He refuses to eat or have anything, refuses to take care of the city. None of his sons are here. He looks at Kaikai and says that I have nothing to do with you. From today and henceforth, you are neither my wife and neither am I your husband. He ensures that he tells Sumantara, one of the key ministers, that his body do not be touched either by Kaikai or his son Bharat. He wanted Shatrughan, the youngest of the sons, to touch and lit his funeral pyre. What was supposed to be done by the eldest was going to be done by the youngest. Saying the words of Ram, 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 Dashrath passes away. There is commotion, losing their scion, losing their brightest ray of hope of Ram to the jungle. They had now lost their king who had built the entire city, a great king in himself. And now, finally, after this, arrives Bharat. When Bharat reaches over there, he is amazed and unable to achieve, to understand what has passed through. When he hears of how the boons asked by his mother has led to Ram being banished inside the forest, when he hears how Manthara tricked his mother into this, and how Manthara was happy to send them away, Bharat speaks to his mother. He says, what wrong did I do to you? It was better if I was never born in my life than to be born right now. Because of you and your boons and your actions, my own father has refused to allow me to touch his body, and I have to respect him. You have broken not only the trust which I had on you, you have broken the relationship between my father and you have broken this entire house. Why were you so jealous of our happiness? And finally, as a last piece, He curses her, saying that for what you have done, for the act which you have done, no child ever will be named Kaikai henceforth. And that's something to think about. Have you ever heard a Kaikai? You would have heard Bharat, you would have heard Ram and Lakshman. These are common names, even Shatrughan. But you would have never heard of a person by the name Kaikai because of a curse, as they say, given by her, that no one would ever be called as Kaikai ever again, for she stands for all those things which are primordial, all those things which are selfish, and all these things. Saying this, Bharat now chooses that I promise I will find a way of making Kaushalya understand. He now goes running to Ram's mother Kaushalya and says that, please do not misunderstand and think that I have planned all of this. None of this was aware to be. If I knew about this, I would have slain my mother by my own hands. But I would have never allowed this to happen to our family. My mother did this on her own. And I promise you, for me also, Ram is the only king of Ayodhya. He will be the only king. I will go and I will get your son back over here. Kaushalya has a smile on her face, knowing that this boy was true. Shatrughn finds hold of Manthara, holds her by the neck, and says that you are the reason why happiness has left our family. I will promise to kill you right now. Bharat says that no. If Ram came to know that we have slain someone part of our royal family who took care of us, it would be wrong. It would be adharma. And this is something to think about. Even when things were, such horrible things were done to Bharat and his entire family, he did not choose to inflict the same. Just like how Vishwamitra taught Ram, even though the Rakshasas were hostile to you, even though they followed different vices, you do not forget your virtues. If someone else does bad to you, the bigger question is not how to get revenge or settle the scores, but to think how do you follow by the values which you are, because how you respond is going to show about your values. After completing the funeral rites of their father, they now stepped and they wanted to inform of Ram and Lakshman about the demise. Lakshman and Ram, Shatrughan and Bharat now walk towards the forest area. Lakshman, who's in charge of Ram and Sita's safety, climbs up and notices that there's a lot of noise coming from around the region. He notices that Bharat, Shatrughan, and an entire army behind him of people are walking towards them. Lakshman, fearful and thinking from the mindset of a defender, tells and yells out to Ram, Bharat has come to kill us. He is not in peace, like his mother, even after sending us to the forest. I promise I will slay him and complete this problem once and for all. Ram says, no, that must not be the reason. If the Bharat I know, he is never like this. So he stops Lakshman from his rage and asks him to come down from the tree and wait to meet Bharat himself. As Bharat comes close by, they notice that Bharat's head is shaved, so is Shatrughan's. They fear the worst, and as they run towards him, Bharat falls at the feet of Ram and starts crying. He asks for forgiveness, and he tells that none of this is because of what I have done. I apologize for the actions of my mother, but it's hers and hers alone. Ram, you are the only king and you're the only brother who I will ever accept sitting on the throne of Ayodhya. Please return back. But before that, I am a bearer of bad news despite such horrible conditions. Our father passed away thinking and taking your name till the last. The moment Ram and Lakshman and Sita listens to this, they fall down. They were not there at the last dying moments of their father's death. And imagine the situation. Children were being sent to the forest while parents and elders were staying at home. When the child is at forest, the elder passes away and the child is now not next to the parent. The pain of the situation. And finally, all four of them together go and visit their father's last dying place. They offer those moments of respect and dignity from the area of the forest itself. Finally, Bharat says, It is time for you to come back to your rightful place inside the city. But Ram says the most amazing thing. He says that a word has been given. Our father died keeping his word. Let us live keeping his word. Our father, for the promise that he gave to Kaikai, followed it, even though he knew it would break his heart. Now he has taught us to always follow words. What will happen to the reputation of our family? What will happen to the example which kings are supposed to set for the people if we forget the promise which we made to our father and our mother when they were alive? Bharat notices that he has no way out. But Bharat also shows amazing exemplary character, and he says that while I have to stay over there in the city, I don't have to be a king. The king is going to be Ram itself. And he now asks for a sandal from Ram. And he says, these sandals which you have given me, Ram, are going to be placed on my head all the way as I walk back towards the throne. On the throne will be if Ram or if not Ram, the footprints and the sandals, or an ancient term for this was padukas of Ram. I will be the regent, the administrator. If my brother and the king cannot have, if my master cannot have sumptuous, delicious meals, cannot have different kinds of jewels and fabrics on him, his servant will have neither. And it is said for the entire 14 years, Bharat lived in a village on the outskirts of Ayodhya by the name Nandigram. He waited and he ran the entire city from that small village, living like a hermit, just the way Ram was living. Imagine the kind of character, love, and integrity these people have. Would we follow promises when we know that the person who we made it to doesn't know about it? Do we do things which are right because that's the right thing to do? Or do we do because if we get caught, we will be embarrassed? Do we wear the seatbelt because it's for our safety, or do we wear the seatbelt because there's a fine of not wearing it? The same thing goes with helmet and so many other things. If you knew that you wouldn't get caught, would you do a wrong act for your personal gain? While a lot of us answer no mentally, it is worth reflecting about in our own personal lives. Tomorrow, when we go to the next session, we will talk about what happens inside these 14 years of Ram's and Sita's and Lakshman's life. What are the more new characters that they meet? What twists and turns comes? And what we can learn from the life of these great souls themselves. Till the next session, take care and see you.
Quite an absorbing session, quite an interesting story. Well said, well narrated. I remember from one section of the story yesterday, Mayank spoke about कल and कल. पास्ट को भी हम हिंदी में कल कहते हैं और फ्यूचर को भी हम हिंदी में कल कहते हैं. He said that's how the life cycle works. जो कल था वो फिर कल होगा. हो सकता है वो लौट कर आए, हो सकता है जो आज है वो फिर कल बन जाए. इसी हिसाब से मैं सोचती हूँ कि the topic that you took, Mayank, was the great Indian story Ramayana in modern perspective. Yes, definitely modern, but I still feel that what you get out of Ramayana, what you got kal, and what you will get to kal, and what you get today, is the victory of good over evil and of positive over the negative. Yes, the way you explained it and the way you put it in the context of it is a victory of positive over the negative. It's in terms of trust, it's in terms of faith, it's in terms of love, in terms of relationships, in terms of emotion, in terms of duty, in terms of virtues. They're just not words. We have to live by them in any life, in any era, in any period, in any context. That is what Ramayana is all about. Very fortunate to have heard your point of view. There's this very interesting, you get a lot of messages through the days, but I don't know, somehow this one just appealed to me, and I think it is very befitting for what we have just heard about Ramayana take on Ramayana by Mayank. There's this beautiful saying that this young girl says. She says, "You work hard, you work hard, you earn enough for yourself. You have not lived your life. But if you become the sponge and you absorb the negativity and yet emit positivity, become a sponge, absorb negativity and yet emit positivity and make a change in someone's life, you have definitely lived your life." We've just heard about the Ram story. So now it's time for the cultural utsav at the Mata Hall. Let's all let's all join in and enjoy this wonderful time together. Mata Hall cultural time.